With the threat of yet another government shutdown around the corner, Republicans and Democrats are yet again staring each other down, this time bickering over funding for disaster relief, money that's desperately needed here in Virginia. And joining me to talk more about this issue and his race for the United States Senate is former Virginia Governor Tim Kaine. Welcome back to First
Hey, Ryan,
Informed.
good to be back with you.
Well, let's talk about this. Now, Republicans have a deal on the table that would increase FEMA's funding by about $4 billion, but they've couched it with about $1 billion in cuts to investment in green energy jobs. Why is it unreasonable to suggest that if we're going to invest so much money in disaster relief that we bring back spending in other places, especially when our deficit problem is so large?
Well, it's a bad idea for a couple reasons, Ryan. And it reminds me, in 2006, my two legislative houses couldn't agree on a budget, and they threatened to produce a government shutdown. And I told Virginians, we're going to operate government, we're going to find an agreement, and we did, and government continued. Here's what's going on. The battle about disaster relief that is needed in Virginia is an important one, and the tradition has always been we help communities out that are hard hit by disasters, and then we figure it out in year end in the budget how to pay for it. The House has taken the position, no, we're not going to give these communities disaster relief until we make expense cuts right now, and they've proposed to cut an alternative energy program that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said last week is a job creator, and that cutting that funding would hurt American jobs. We shouldn't be pitting disaster relief victims against people who will be potentially unemployed if we cut economic development
But isn't
projects.
there some disagreement over necessarily how successful these green job investment creation programs have been? And aren't the Republicans compromising to a certain degree because they're not asking for $4 billion in cuts for $4 billion in investment in FEMA? They've only asked for $1 billion.
But look what they're doing, Ryan. They're not only saying we want to reduce this program that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce says is a job creator, but they're also saying, and we're going to hold up approval of the operations of federal government unless we can agree on this in the next few days. There is no reason to put the operations of federal government, a potential government shutdown, on the table to try to win an argument about a narrow spending item with respect to disaster recovery. So I think what they're doing is they're playing politics with victims of disasters, and they're playing politics with people who receive veterans pensions and the payment of our military and economic development projects or unemployment compensation. There's no reason to link these issues. Should we be making expense cuts? Of course we should. I cut more money out of the Virginia budget than anybody who's ever been governor, and I know how to do it, but you don't put a single partisan issue in the midst of an issue about whether government should continue. We can work that out in time, but we ought to be doing the disaster relief, and we ought to be operating federal government.
This is just a small slice. It's less than 1% of the overall budget, but it represents a much bigger fight.
Sure.
And as we go forward, where are you on the president's deficit reduction plan in particular? Your potential opponent, Governor Allen, has hit you hard, saying that you're for tax increases.
Yeah, he's completely misstated my position. Letting the Bush tax cuts expire, even Grover Norquist has said that's not a tax increase. The tax cuts in the Bush tax cut plan were made temporary. George Allen voted for them to be temporary, and they were made temporary for one reason. If you make them permanent, they will completely explode the deficit. So here they are. They're temporary. They're set to expire at the end of 2012, and I have supported the element of the president's plan that would let those tax cuts expire at the top end. That's not voting for a tax increase. That piece of the plan I support. I also more broadly support the notion the only way to deal with the deficit is to make cuts first, like I did as governor. George Allen never cut anything. And second, find tax reform, like letting these tax cuts expire at the top end and also taking away subsidies from big oil,
but
those companies that don't need them.
I mean, capital gains taxes are on the table. Would you agree with an expansion of capital gains tax?
I have not supported that provision. I have supported the expiration of the tax cuts, the temporary tax cuts, as was originally planned, as was promised by George Allen. Let them expire at the top end. I also believe we do need to take away some of the tax breaks and loopholes for big oil companies. Okay. I want them to be profitable, but they don't need our help.
Okay, all right. Governor Kaine, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, sir.
You bet, Ryan. Good to be with you.